So hi everybody and welcome to episode 107 of Level Up, 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions and votes really do drive the show. A warm welcome to everybody today. Do let our social team please know your name and the city from where you are joining around the world. We do love to get everybody involved. Now then, they are of course online, Ella and Adriana, and they'll be posting a link into the chat to vote up the questions that you would most like answered, and of course for you to be able to add your own. We live stream Mondays at 8 and Fridays at 2, both UK time, to YouTube and LinkedIn. And of course over the weekend the UK moved back to Greenwich Mean Time for the next 6 months or so until we emerge from our hibernation next spring. All right, very good. Now then, if your question is selected, your name will appear in the credits at the end of the show. So do get yours in early and stay with us to see all of that happening. Today, we're going to be talking about measurement in business. This is something that we are all either part of thinking up what our key performance indicators are, or alternatively, we are measured, our performance is measured using them. So in particular today, we're going to be thinking about what should you be paying attention to if your business is going to flourish? In a strong market, a bull market, where opportunities seem to come thick and fast, it's easy to lose sight sometimes of what is genuinely profitable business and sustainable. Now that the world looks set to be in a downturn for a little while, understanding where our most profitable, valuable opportunities lie is a key concern for everybody. So let's jump straight in and meet our panel of experts. Joining us from Singapore today is Sarbojit Bose, who I'm sure is a familiar face now to many of the LinkedIn viewers. He's the managing director, of course, at Cyberservices, where he works tirelessly with his clients across the region to adopt leading practice, improve business outcomes, and reduce their operating costs. Welcome back to Level Up, Sarbojit. Great to see you.
Thank you so much, Nick, for that. And thank you for the Level Up team for having me today. And welcome all the guests and viewers, because we all depend on you and your wonderful questions. So thank you again.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much. Michał Brennek is an instructor over with OMEC. They are, of course, the Open Management Education Centre, whose mission centres on effective management education. I think it's fair to say that Michał often is called upon by his clients to work on failing projects, something that he truly relishes, where he applies his creativity and experience to make a difference and to help them turn around. Welcome to Level Up, Michał. Great to see you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much indeed. Nigel Mercer rejoins us today. Nigel, as you know, is the regional lead here at APMG for Africa and North America. And his background, you may not know this actually, includes heading up IT functions for logistic organizations, where he was responsible for servicing the kind of operational data that really does drive decision making. So welcome back to Level Up, Nigel.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Great to be here. It's always a fun thing to do on a Monday morning. So.
Okay, still quite early actually, to be fair, in South Africa. Mart Rovers is a leadership consultant and coach, and he heads up INTERPROM, who have a presence now both in Europe and also, of course, in the USA. His passion is in coaching and helping others to perform better, and he's really well versed in how to baseline organizations and identify where best to place their focus and attention. So welcome back to Level Up, Mart.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, APMG, for having me. And welcome to all the viewers. Look forward to some great questions. And to set the theme for today, I want to start with what Forbes from Forbes magazines once said. If you don't drive your business, you will be driven out of business. Well, maybe that's the stage for what's coming up.
Yeah, well, Forbes have been in business quite a long time, haven't they? I don't know if they're still owned by the same people, but the brand has endured, and there is something of real merit in that. And of course, we can all think about, some of those key brands, global brands brands. Kodak was one, wasn't they? Kodak were an amazing brand. I remember, when my children were little, every place that we went to around the world was selling Kodak film, Kodak products, and so on and so on. Failed to recognize that actually digital transformation was coming, and failed to capitalize on that brand value and move across to digital faster. But there we go. That's probably a case study in its own right. It's probably worth a subscription to Forbes magazine just on that one alone. Anyway, our question master for today, joining us from the beautiful garden city of Bangalore in India, is of course Suchitra Jacob. Welcome back, Suchitra. How are you?
Hi, Nick. Hi, everyone. Great to be back again. And I can't wait to ask questions on this very interesting topic and listen to some amazing answers.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, Suchitra and I actually do talk quite a lot about key performance indicators in our day jobs. So from that point of view, it's going to be quite interesting which one she picks out of all of the ones being submitted. I can see a huge number of people joining online now. I don't have time to mention all of you, but do a very warm welcome to everybody who is online. We'll come back to some of those names in a moment, but I think we should get underway, Suchitra, and let's take our first question, please.
Our first question is from Pat. Is business size a good way to measure business success and performance? Why or why not?
Really good question, isn't it? It's quite a fascinating one, this. Nigel, start us off, and then we'll hear from Sarbojit.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I'm not so sure that business size is necessarily a good way to measure your success or performance. It could be part of it. So if your goal as a business is to grow to be larger, sure, then one of the indicators could be how big are we today. But really what you want to be looking at here is how profitable is that business that you're doing. I personally would rather have a smaller business that's a lot more profitable than a large business that isn't.
Okay, thank you so much indeed. Great start. Sarbojit, your thoughts, please, and then we'll hear from Mart.
Yeah, well, Nigel, you nailed it with the last sentence that you made, that it's good to be, profitable concern, but a small concern organization than a large organization with small profit. But yeah, the question that Pat asked is wonderful. It says size. Now, again, what is size? Are we talking about, or is he talking about size from profit, size from the market share, size from the perspective of geography? Well, that matters. Different organizations look at things in different ways because of their culture and because of management style. And yes, based on that, the size can also be different. I would say we need to talk about what the size means.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Some great thinking there. Mart, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I took the question as just like my Nigel, as in how many employees do we have, and I don't think that's the right way of measuring it. I once read a study about the type of people that you have, and it was talking about A players, B players, and C players. And an A player was then measured based on performance and behavior. And obviously, any top executive had to be an A player, but eventually the ultimate target was that to have 90% of your staff, of people working for you or part of the team, better way of saying it, should be an A player. And they were pretty harsh as far as any C player, just let them go, turn B players into A players. That to me, would be a better way of looking at quote, quote, size of an organization, as in what type of people do I have?
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, of course, one of the classic things, isn't it, is you may remember I've mentioned this previously on a LinkedIn episode where genuinely on somebody's CV they had written that they were responsible for all of the complaints in their organization for the last 10 years. Now, I'm sure that they meant that in a positive way, but if you have a really big complaints department, then it's possibly not a good indicator of great overall operational excellence, if that makes sense. Now clearly, if depends on the nature of the organization that you're in. Where I think size does matter is when you're considering an organization say, government or healthcare, primary healthcare, how many young people are you able to vaccinate within a given period? These sorts of things, that outreach type, social type activity is very important. And there, excuse me, size can really matter because it can actually drive the effectiveness of what it is that you're doing. But other than that, I would say it's fairly limited. It's not a great measure of success. So thank you very much indeed, panel, and thank you, Pat, for a fantastic first question. Let's look across on social and see who we've actually got online this morning. So thank you for joining, Daia. Hussein from Iraq, brilliant to have you online today. We look forward to hearing from you and hearing some questions. Also, Marion joining in from Houlton in the Netherlands. Marion, our wet weather is on its way to you after a sunny weekend, I think. A gift from the United Kingdom. Lara has joined us, so thank you so much, Lara, for joining and saying hello to everybody today. And we have Diane as well, who's joining from late on Sunday night, I would suggest, most likely from where she is in the world over in Trinidad and Tobago. And finally, Mahtab, thank you so much for joining from India. Great to have you online. Okay, so Suchitra, on that note, let's move on, please, if we can, and take our next question.
Our next question is from Robert. What level of importance should be given to the following, or are they all the same? Engagement with existing customers, attract new business, or try new channels?
Okay. Mart, why don't you start us off and then we'll hear from Michael.
For me personally, customer loyalty is crucial. In other words, how long do you have existing customers stay with you because you continue to be of value to them, and you build very strong and tight and long-lasting relationships. So that would be my priority.
Okay, thank you very much. It's so important, isn't it? Otherwise, you end up in that kind of hamster wheel of trying to market and sell all of the time. It's exhausting. Michael, your thoughts, and then Nigel, please.
I second Martin that you need to take care of your existing customers, and if they are happy with what you do, then they will be the best way to actually drive new customers and grow your business. But on the same time, try new channels without risking your continuous operations. So if you have some free resources, try something new because it might be a gold mine.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it's the kind of thing where if you can turn an existing customer into, I would say, a social supporter, initially just talking positively about your business, then that's really great. And in time, they may even become an advocate, an extension of your organization out there in the marketplace, and be a great thing to hear from all of the folks online about their thinking on that as you join us from around the world. It would be really interesting. So I'm going to ask Adriana just to kind of raise that point from Michael in the chat and see if we can get a bit of a debate going and some interest there. Nigel, your thoughts on this, please, and then Sarbojit.
Yeah, so I think a lot of this will depend on your company strategy, in which direction you're trying to go. Obviously, always keeping your existing customers happy, forging good relationships, becoming, I would call that, trusted advisor, and continually having that relationship with them is always going to be important no matter what. If you can't retain your existing customers, you're not going to have a business in the long term, or you're going to be perpetually caught in the attract new business cycle because you keep on losing the ones that you gain. However, finding new business is obviously just as important as keeping your existing customers happy. Whether or not you try new channels depends entirely on the company strategy. If you have a very fixed go-to-market strategy, you're probably not going to be that open to trying too many new channels. But is it important to grow your business? Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Sarbojit, what are your thoughts on this? Are they of equal importance, engaging existing or attracting new folks?
Well, I would say these three things are important in their own merit, in their own domain that they are. Now, the first one in engagement with the existing customer is more of a strategic decision where you would, customers are, we say, king for business. And attract new business is more of a tactical that we want to go in and attract new business areas so that we can serve the same customers, or we may also go to new customers. But then we can go into the same customers as well. And trying a new channel is more of an operational component where we are trying to see how to reach those customers and that new business perhaps to a new channel or a different channel. So that will be the angle that I want to look at.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Now, it's a fascinating combination, isn't it? And particularly one with channel management, where you have direct sales activity. It's very clear who your customer is. Where you have an indirect channel model, where you're encouraging, perhaps you're in distribution, or you're in intellectual property, as APMG are. We work typically with partners around the world, and so who is our customer? And you can kind of have that internal debate. So it might be worthwhile just exploring that in a moment. But in a channel model, thinking about how do you reach through the channel to your end customers, if you like, or the consumers of your service, it's a very, very important relationship to have. And unless it's sustainable and it's open and honest, and people are able to share what's working well and what's not working so well, it's a really hard thing to know what direction to go in. So, Michael, what are your thoughts on this one? And then I want to come back to Nigel, who does this on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I was just thinking about attracting a new business. If you manage to get the engagement with existing customers right, if you form good relationships, good bond, they will tell you. Just be open to what they need, and be open to modifying your offer towards that, and your business will thrive. You will, well, all the innovation effort will do itself by itself.
Thank you very much indeed. Nigel, you do this day to day. What are your thoughts on the channel dimension?
So we've seen, and you'll bear with me on this as well, Nick, we've seen over the years a number of organizations take the decision to operate a mixed channel, right, where they go both direct in some way or another and go via a channel. And that is an incredibly difficult model to sustain and grow, quite simply because you often end up with brand reputational damage to your own brand. You lose partner networks. People are not really very happy with you when you start to undercut them and actually compete with your own channel. So it's very difficult to sustain a dual channel model unless there is an incredibly high and solid wall between what you're trying to do in your side of the channel and what the customers are doing in your partner end of the channel. So I would suggest pick a channel model and stick with it, and then try to grow through that channel rather than going direct and indirect. Both of them are very difficult to coexist.
Okay, it's a really, really good advice there. It needs a very mature approach. And I think that you're right. There are certain things where you can add value by doing things directly. Ongoing warranty might be one, for instance, where you can provide a set of services which are beyond the capability of an individual channel partner, perhaps. But on the other hand, just simply looking at the bottom line and thinking, we need more profit, let's go direct. It's probably not the best business advice that you could give to somebody who wants to remain in post for more than about quarter or two, I would suggest. Very good. Thank you very much indeed, panel, and thank you to Robert for a really interesting and stimulating question. Now then, let's have a look on social media and see who else is online. Good morning, Silke. Thank you for joining from Cologne, a very beautiful area in Germany. So great to have you online today. And also to Bartosz as well. Thank you so much, my friend. Lovely to have you dialing in from Poland. Do you dial in anymore on broadband? I don't think so. Agnes as well. Brilliant to have you joining. Hello to you too. Agnes is a strong follower of Level Up and a regular viewer. And then we've got Ahmad as well from Qatar. Brilliant to have you online. Now then, social team, do start having a bit of a conversation, please, and join in with some of the questions, because we really do want to hear your thoughts, okay, on the questions as we are discussing them, particularly today, because this kind of measurement transcends industry. Doesn't matter whether you're in financial services or, you know, you're working in healthcare. Measuring things is a part of everyday organizational reality, isn't it? We need to do it, and we need to do it really well. So good. Suchitra, on that note, let's move on, please, if we can, and take our next question.
We have a question from Andre. Giving back to the community is worthwhile to grow my business. What is an effective way to do this?
Okay, Michael, start us off with our thinking about pro bono work or community-based work. It's often something which is seen and championed by the PR industry. But what's an effective way to do it?
Well, for me, as a business owner and a contributor to the OMEC consortium, I would say that if you give back to the community, you meet like-minded people, and that's something that it's done in the easiest way. But if you decide to give back to the community, do not think about the PR itself, but try to make it something really worthwhile and something really deep and something really needed, because it will bring a lot, not only a lot of joy and a lot of fulfillment to you and your coworkers, but also can open potential contacts and possibilities for your own business, because you will meet like-minded people while doing that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Mart, how important is this avoiding, focusing on the PR angle and, really thinking about what you're doing? Your thoughts on this one, please.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be genuine to begin with. Otherwise, it may feel like it's made up or it's fake. It needs to match your brand, what you represent, who you are. And yeah, it needs, you need to do it. Let's start there also. It's really important to give back to the community, and then for the right reasons. Basically, that's what it comes down to, and that can be volunteering in certain initiatives, or just start an initiative to give back, whether that's through sharing information, sharing knowledge, or helping others. It can be in many different ways, but yeah, definitely has to be genuine and meet who you are, basically. Match with who you are.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Sarbojit?
Hi. Well, I would like to look at this giving back to community from a different angle. It's just not a pro bono that once in a while we go and do something, and well, we like or not, most of it becomes a PR end of the day. Well, in Singapore, we have this corporate social responsibility where every organization has to clock in some hours every year. So they go out, and then sometimes I have seen organizations are trying to nudge each other to see who can do better and where to show off. Well, that is one thing, but what I would want to talk about today is about that an organization is, or a company is not hanging in thin air. The business is happening in a community, and its employees are coming from the community, and all the other stakeholders are also coming. Even the customers are people from the community. And do what they do, we see today that the organizations, many of them, especially from manufacturing and others, they are impacting the community in some respect or the other. So I would say giving back is not just doing something separate, but doing to their own employees, for their customers, for those stakeholders, is also giving back to the community. And especially today, when we think about this global, climate change, and we know that has happened because some organizations have irresponsibly not thought about the community and done job of doing their business. So I would say community giving is a much bigger thing. It's just not a pro bono activity.
Understand that. Yeah, understand that. Some really good thinking there, and particularly thinking about the unintended consequences of the kind of business that we're in and the impact that that may have on others, either locally or remotely from us. Nigel, your thoughts on this one?
I think a lot of it also depends what kind of business you're in, as to how you would most effectively manage that. So in our business model, what we're doing, this is a good example of giving back to the community with Level Up. We don't charge for this. Everybody that appears on the show, and thank you to every single one of you, the panelists, we are doing this to provide knowledge to the general community. So it's not something you have to pay for. You can just log on and watch, and you'll find some really fantastic answers from tons of panelists all over the world. So in the education space, this is just an example of how you could effectively do it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's such an important dimension, isn't it, to all of our work, that we do constantly think about that engagement with community and giving something back. It was. I know that Winston Churchill is often attributed to have many different sayings, but one of them was that you make a living from what you get, in other words, your salary and so on, yeah. But you make a life from what you give, and I think that is a mantra that everybody on Level Up, and particularly this panel, really keep very close to their hearts. Now then, I want to come to a couple of comments and just note them, which are online. And first of all, from Peter Karumana. I do hope I pronounced your name correctly, or I'll seek your forgiveness, Peter, if I didn't quite get that right. But look, what a fantastic thing to say. Completely honest. Be completely honest and ethical, all right, in volunteering, all right? When you volunteer your time, give that willingly and generously. And I could not agree more. I do also want to include Victoria's comment from the conversation just a few moments ago, actually, when we were talking about, how do you spend your time? Is it trying to win new business? Is it engaging with customers who you already have? Or is it, looking to your channel? And, she's supporting there and saying, look, you can do some different work across multiple channels, providing that you've got the right team in place. And I completely agree with that, Victoria. And I happen to know Victoria's organisation are masters in doing that as well. I happen to know them quite well, actually. So very good. So thank you so much to everybody socially who's online. It's really joining in today. It's fantastic to see. Suchitra, if we can, let's move on. We'll take our next question, please.
We have a live question from Diane. In the startup stage of a business, when revenues are low, what are some KPIs to be measured?
That's just a really great question, isn't it? So before you've got the track record of, delivering against those, kind of high revenue goals, where should you begin, Sarbojit? Start us off with one of your thoughts.
Well, today, one thing in the corporate world we talk about is a value stream. What is value? And now, whether it's a startup or a big company, the first thing is you have to know the value that your customers are looking for. And if you know the value, all you have to do is to deliver that value. And that is, I guess, the biggest performance indicator that you can have. Now, people talk about time to market. Yes, that is important. But most important is, the thing is, are you making your customers really happy? It's not about happy of giving them in a lesser price, that is also good, but what they really can use and make a benefit out of it. whether you are a startup or a mature organization, that makes a whole lot of difference. And it really ties on to all the things that we have been talking about, like how do we grow and what kind of measurement we want to have. So we want to measure what really matters. And in this regard, I would like to talk about that we should have a quick this book by that is there. It's a wonderful book. I've given this thing, and maybe we can share it later about Measure What Matters by John.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get that link. I do have that link. We'll find its way through to producing a QR code for you so that we can put it up on the screen. Social, we do have a link to a really good book that Sarbojit would like to recommend. So we'll get hold of that. Nigel, your thoughts, please, and then we'll hear from Mart.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So probably when you're in the startup phase, one of the biggest challenges people face in this area is they overpromise and underdeliver in general. And it's a natural thing. You want to make everybody happy. You never say no to anything. You go forward flat out with 11/10. So we'll figure it all out on the back end, later on. But quite often that comes back to bite really, really hard. So if I was looking at which KPIs to be measured, which would be pretty much most of them around the delivery and capability area. Okay? So making sure that you have the right service level agreements in place, making sure that the service levels are kept to and within a certain time frame. All of those kind of KPIs are definitely ones that you want to start with looking at.
Okay, all right then, thank you. So we've got a couple of technical issues that we're just working through, everybody at the moment, but I think we're all right to continue. Mart, your thoughts on this one, please.
As a startup, you definitely need cash. So cash flow is something that is important. I mean, if you watch the show Shark Tank, I think it's you can watch it in multiple countries. What do these people seek? They all want cash just to keep things going, moving, to have inventory and to be able to continue to sell. So cash flow is definitely one of them, and then two other ones that are important in the beginning phase, but also later on. It's of course customer happiness and employee happiness. That remains, of course, but to start focusing on those from the very beginning is definitely also important.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. When you're in the early days, it's like being at the beginning of your career. Right, the beginning of your career, you have fantastic opportunity ahead of you. You have the aptitude to be amazing, but you don't yet have that proven track record on which to trade rather. Yeah. So with that in mind, you're trying to look for your early backers, your early sponsors, whoever hires you first, post your education, as an intern perhaps, or, as somebody who's very early career, your first role in an organization won't necessarily be the one that you aspire to become in the future. And the same is true of startups, really. Whilst you may aspire, you might have the vision to be, the global dominant force behind X, Y, or Z. In the early days, that's unproven. So you are selling to a certain extent the vision. And it's very, very important to focus on making sure that you remain true to that. And to Nigel's point, try not to overpromise in order to be able to secure business, but be pragmatic and patient, because it takes time to be able to build a sustainable pipeline of customers, to onboard them, to offer value to them, and to move on to the next thing. And I think it's particularly true when you're working in the service industry, because the thing that will make you stand out as a small, new organization is your service that you're able to provide, because others may be bigger than you and they may be able to compete more on price or, on geography and these kinds of things. But when you're small, the thing that you can really focus on is your service. So I would look at all of those things that Mart was talking about: customer satisfaction, all right? How happy are people with the service that you are delivering? And particularly so with those colleagues, with those employees, because you need them to stay with you in order to be able to build out that service delivery capability. All right, very good. Let's move on then, if we can, Suchitra, and take our next question, please.
We have a question from Michał. The Kingdom of Bhutan famously measures gross domestic happiness of citizens. What recommendations can the panel make to measure employee happiness?
No, yes, no, I read this study some years ago as part of their it's not an annual thing. I think it's every few years or so, as part of the census, that they do actually ask citizens to tell them, have the last few years been better for you or worse? Nigel, start us off. How would you go about measuring employee happiness and well-being?
So, yeah, I think here we start onto a very interesting discussion about the human capital within your organization. And quite honestly, without the right people in the right place and happy people at that, you don't really have much of a chance of success within the organization. So management style is something that you would want to look at in terms of measuring. What kind of, how can we put this? What kind of sorry guys, word just jumped out of my mind. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is here, how happy are the folks that you have working for you? How do you measure how happy they are? Is obviously a little bit more difficult. Somebody will help me out here with a few more examples on that. But if you don't measure how happy folks are and you don't keep them happy, you're just not going to have a successful organization. It'll come back to me. I'll jump back in.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine, Nigel. No problem at all. Michael, what are your thoughts on, how we might go about measuring employee happiness?
Well, pretty simple. Talk to them, and then be genuine in that you really listen to what they have to say. Because if we devise some fancy measurement and then you send them basically I don't know an Excel spreadsheet or a form or whatever, please make your comments or rate on a scale. How does that affect their happiness? How does that affect how they feel? Just talk to them. And if you have bigger organization, you will have your managers. And if you have the right staff, and you has as it was said, if you have the right style of management, then you will be able to receive those. And those things are discussed over a cup of coffee, not over an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's very true, isn't it? There were some fantastic Apple campaigns many, many years ago where they were talking emotionally about products, and one of the things that they used to illustrate that was that the person with the Apple product was sharing their photos of their family time, and they'd been on holiday and they'd had a great time, and here's Auntie Mary and here's cousin Bill, and all of that kind of thing. Whereas the PC user they'd done a pie chart. Okay, so I think I completely agree with you there. There's an emotional measurement which is quite different from the kind of logical, or the mathematical measurement of things. Mart, what are your thoughts? Can you measure employee happiness? Are there some tools and techniques for you to do that?
Yeah, I'll list a few to consider, starting with compensation, but let's not overemphasize that, but it's still relevant. Of course, the work environment, is that a pleasant environment that you like to come back to? Are you provided with the right tools and resources to do your job? What about your workload? Does management just pile on and assume that you just can do more in your 40 hours or 32 hours, however long your work week is? Things like attitude, behavior, culture. What's that like? Does it fit? I mean, does it come like this is this is also my behavior? This is my values. The work-life balance, and last but not least, the working relationships. I mean, are you treated as an order taker, or are you more treated as like a partner? Is there trust going on? Things of that nature. You can measure all that. And when it's about the relationships, a quick pitch here to the BRM Institute that has some great ways of measuring these relationships.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Thank you very much indeed. Nigel, you wanted to come back in, and then we'll hear from Sarbojit.
Yeah, sorry, before I had my senior moment earlier, the words I was thinking of were engagement and involvement. Yeah. So those are two key things that you can measure. How engaged are your employees in what you are doing, in the strategy of the company, in the way that you're looking forward? How engaging are they with their customers and so on? And also, how involved are they with things within the company? Yeah. Those are usually both good indicators. If your employees are not engaged, they're not involved, generally they're not happy. So you need to look at that quite carefully.
Yeah, and I guess from a direction of travel point of view, there will be times, all right, there will be times when some folks in the team are less engaged than others, and that could be things which are either a direct result of the strategy that the company is taking, or alternatively, outside things which are happening, which might mean, that for a briefer period of time, people are less engaged in their day-to-day work. But overall, you would hope, that everybody was aligned and coming with you on that journey. Sarbojit, final thoughts on this, and then we'll move on.
Actually, the way of or the practice of measuring employee happiness is there. There are some research papers, even one from Malaysia has been, and others are there. And today there are indices which are measured and provided. And there's one measure from one organization called Comparably, and the current 2022 HubSpot is the winner, the first position holder of that employee happiness. And the way they measure it about is, yes, of course, how much I am paid and how good is my work environment. Then there's a work-life balance, and also there is something of the employee health. How am I doing physically and emotionally? These three things are the parameters to measure the employee happiness. Well, I don't know if the Bhutan government is doing it the same way, but then for organization, this is how things are done.
Okay, now they were the first. Thank you very much indeed, panel. The Kingdom of Bhutan were the first ones to really focus on this, and they spent quite a bit of time actually. The background to it is that they spent quite a bit of time figuring out what does good look like. Because although it's a country with great mineral wealth, it's a country where people's incomes are fairly modest. So on the World Bank scale, the Kingdom of Bhutan is not, right up there in the highest earning countries per head of population. But they did spend some time actually really exploring what did citizens want and what does good look like. Because to earlier comments, if you exploit resources without thinking about the impact on others, then perhaps that's not what good looks like. So you need to consider a more holistic approach. So it's something I think that we can all learn from, and a very interesting case study. So do have a look for that online. There's plenty of information behind it. Read up a little bit more. Thank you very much indeed, panel. Suchitra, I know time is working against us and we've got a lot of questions to get through. So let's move on, please. We'll take our next question, please.
We have a live question from Manoj. How best do we engage employees to adapt and embrace to constant change during a complex business transformation program?
All right, how do we manage to do that and keep that stamina going? Nigel, start us off and then we'll hear from Sarbojit.
Yeah, so first and foremost, effective change management practices are key here. You need to really, really make sure that your change management is top-notch, top drawer, particularly during those complex transformations. But it comes back down to, in addition to those, engage and make sure people are involved. If they don't understand the direction of travel the strategy is taking, they generally are going to pull back. So that is the most difficult time. And once they've pulled back, to try and get them back in the right direction again is much, much more difficult. So engagement and involvement again.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Sarbojit?
Yes, Nigel, very much change management. But here, if I want to say it's an organizational change management and the top-notch management part that, as we say, senior management, they have a very key role to play. And I have experienced one such for British American Tobacco in Malaysia. They were just outsourcing, going to outsource, and many people for BAT in their IT were supposed to lose jobs, but the management went down, set the expectation the right way, and communicated through them and give them such assurance. And they also helped them the way that people were happily to say, yeah, I want to leave and I want to take advantage of this and I want to have my new career outside my current organization. So that is a wonderful way. And it's not like retrenching people, but making people feel the value they are and making them, uh, giving them an opportunity, to serve better for whichever is their uh, prospective employer. So organization change
Okay.
management with communication and commitment of the management is very, very important.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much indeed. Mart, your thoughts on this, please?
I agree with change leadership and organizational change management. I'd like to add the concept of coaching, either personal coaches or team coaches. So people have a go-to person who can help guide them through this change, constant change sometimes. But knowing who to talk to, a trusted advisor, somebody who's there for them. So the whole concept of coaching, I think, is critical importance, and I think sometimes underrated in organizations. Definitely use a boost to get a practice around coaching going.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Some really good advice there from the panel. That coaching is such an important thing, isn't it? If you think about it, the coach engages with the athlete, but it's the athlete's performance that the coach is focused on, all right, not their own. It's the athlete who's usually out of breath, right, when the coach is giving the kind of the feedback from the performance. So we all need to do something if we're being coached, all right. It's just a little shout out to all of the coaches who are working out there in the field. Don't sit back, don't leave it's like, if you're learning to play the piano, don't leave your piano practice until the night before your next lesson. It's not a good idea. You need to actually put into practice the things that you were being coached on in the previous lesson straight away. Have a go the next day, the next hour, the next telephone call or meeting that you're in. Have a go and engage others in a more meaningful way, than you might have otherwise done. Very good. We have time to squeeze in one, possibly two more questions, but we're going to have to be super fast. Suchitra, next question, please.
We have a question that's just come in from Lauren. What do you think of a company when they see only people as numbers and only care about sales and numbers instead of the people that left due to this?
An interesting question from Lauren. So, Nigel, start us off and then we'll hear from Michael.
What do I think about that company at this point? Not a lot. Certainly, they don't have a huge future. Because if you're not going to invest in your people, you're not going to recognize the skills, the hard work, and everything else that they put in to make your company successful, it's unlikely that you're going to succeed long term with that approach. Look, there are some types of businesses where workforces are so vast and the type of work is so, I would say, repetitive that it's very difficult to recognize every single employee in the same way. But having said that, every single company needs to take a look at their human capital and recognize it and reward it. So do we think this is going to happen in future? Yes. And unfortunately, it still does.
Thank you so much. Michael, your thoughts on this, please.
I have one word for you: run.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. We've seen these companies too many times, unfortunately. And when you go to have a consultation to provide services regarding management techniques to those companies, you immediately can detect what type of company regarding people it is. Do they say that we manage people, or do they say that we lead people? And this is what was being said previously regarding the Kingdom of Bhutan, right? You do not exploit your resources. So basically, those people are for you, for your business to thrive. And if you exploit their resources that they can provide for the company, and in many cases, the numbers in Excel spreadsheet will magically make that unfortunate practice easier, then you will lose in the business game.
I think that you're right. I want to post because all of these questions come into us, and clearly this one has a particular resonance with the viewer who's put the question, and it will be a very personal experience. You know, how we perceive organisations is unique to ourselves. Now, there are occasions where I think that one of the issues is around maturity in an organization and understanding that there has to be a link between sustainability for that business and how the business is performing. But I think what's being painted in the picture of the question, it's just my thoughts on this really, Lauren, is that recognition that somehow or another that connection was very much broken. Okay, and so I agree with Michael and I agree with Nigel that in those circumstances it really does sound quite toxic, and so therefore is not the right approach to take. All right, very good. Let's move on, if we can then, please, and take our next question. Suchitra.
We have another live question from a YouTube viewer. How can I know I'm giving the right product to customers?
Okay, briefly, please, everybody. Sarbojit and then Mart.
Right, as I said, you have to know the value, what your customer is looking for, and when you know that, you can give them the right. And to do that, you need to come closer to them, communicate with them, collaborate with them, and build up a relationship with them.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Mart, your thoughts, please.
Approach it from a customer experience point of view, a more holistic point of view, from the whole life cycle of starting to advertise until that product is being used, consumed, see what the experience was. So it's all about the value. Does it resolve a problem? Does it make a life easier of the consumer, the buyer?
Thank you very much indeed. And Michael?
I would say
sorry,
that.
Nigel.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Michael. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I would just say that sometimes it's not only the question of value, but also the question of timing. So you might get everything right in terms of value, in terms of your offer, but the timing is not right. But the solution to that is talk to your customers, listen to them, and they will tell you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Excellent. Nigel, final thoughts on this?
Yeah, very, very briefly, understand the competitive landscape, which is really important. And I agree with what everybody else has said. I was going to say that up front. Talk to your customers. Most importantly, understand their needs. That's the most obvious part.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you so much to all of our producers online today who have done a fantastic job of bringing in their thoughts, their ideas, their questions to the panel and giving us such a brilliant set of topics to be able to discuss. We've got right into the heart of some real challenge, actually, that's out there in business. So let's gather our thoughts together if we can. We're going to hear some closing remarks from the panel. Nigel, if I may, I'll come to you first and then Sarbojit.
Yeah, sure. I think a great show. I think lots of interesting questions came in. I just want to say thanks to everybody who popped them in. This is a very difficult and interesting topic, though. All too often, we didn't get too much into what should you measure and what shouldn't you measure. But I've seen so many companies measuring things for the sake of measuring them. They read it in a book that might be a good thing to measure, but it really isn't. Okay? And it's really impossible to measure, and it means absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. So really understand your own business, and then you can understand better what to measure to be more successful.
Thank you very much indeed. Great advice there, Sarbojit, and then Michael.
The first thing is to understand the purpose of business. So why am I there? What am I doing? For whom am I doing? And when I know that, I know what makes the difference and what I need to measure, right? If I'm going to make myself a jacket, I'm not going to measure for my trousers, right? So that tells it all.
Fantastic. I love that tailoring analogy. What a great place to start. Thank you so much. Michael and then Mart.
There is this saying, though we do not know what we measure, then we publish it with pleasure. So do not fall into these fancy measurements that you don't publish, and we are so great because we have 30%, and that's good. Well, maybe it is good. Maybe it is just mediocre. So especially if you go into these complex indexes, be sure to understand what's buried in them. What is the mathematical sense of this indicator, and tailor them to your own needs. And good luck, because it's you who will decide what are the right things for your business.
Absolutely right. Thank you very much indeed. So I've written that one down. I'm really going to use that one in the future. Thank you, Michael. Mart, your final thoughts, please. Then we'll hear from Suchitra.
I'll also like to mention a quote, but before I do that, I want to also say something about what the BRM Institute is putting forward lately around alignment of personal purpose with the organization's purpose. And the more people you have on your team that have a personal purpose that is aligned with the business organization's purpose, of course, that's another way of measuring. Do I have the right people? And of course, when that aligns, great things can happen. But the quote is from Thomas Watson, the former CEO of IBM, who once said, "To be successful, you have to have your heart in your business and your business in your heart."
Mm. Mm. And a really good thought for us to kind of end on there. Thank you so much indeed, Mart. Suchitra, it's been an interesting journey today, from the emotional through to the kind of transactional, if you like, in terms of measurement and what is good, what does good look like, and so on. And what are your thoughts on today's episode?
I love this episode, Nick. And firstly, the topic itself was so interesting, and the contribution from the panelists, and also some very great questions from our viewers, and some amazing closing remarks and quotes. So I enjoyed listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we did find, Sarbojit, thank you so much. We found your recommendations for looking at some of those reports online. So we have posted those into the social chat, and we'll follow up with everybody afterwards. A huge thank you to everybody who's joined us today online from around the world. We've had pretty much every continent actually represented in terms of locations. So thank you so much for doing that. Some of you actually are up at least way past my bedtime anyway, but thank you so much for joining us. You're clearly younger and have much more energy, more capacity to be able to cope with that than I do now at my time of life. But there we are. All right, very good. Now then, looking forwards then to where we're going next. Over on our website, of course, you can search for and get answers to more than, I would think now it's over 1,500 questions actually, with all of their answers that connect you with all of the experts from Level Up around the world. And don't forget that you can listen to the audio versions of every show on your preferred podcast platform. Just simply search for Level Up Your Career with APMG International, and you will find it. Looking forward, coming up later on this week, on Friday the 4th of November, we're going to be talking about how can you build a lean culture in your organization. Now, it's not the lean as in the famous fast food restaurant that said, you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean. Not that kind of lean. It's actually all about applying the thinking behind lean manufacturing and that lean philosophy into continuous improvement in your organization. Now then, following Monday, then on the 7th, we're going to be exploring how to become a strategic implementation specialist before thinking about a similar approach to achieving becoming an agile change agent on Friday the 11th. Subscribe to the show and we'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up next and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye now.